Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a concept that feels deceptively simple: randomness.
Yeah, it seems straightforward, right?
Totally. But it gets incredibly tricky the moment you start peeling back the layers. It feels intuitive, but wow, it quickly becomes profound.
Absolutely.
So, we're going to explore random generation from a few key perspectives, using your sources and, pull out the most important bits.
Think of it as a shortcut.
Exactly, a shortcut to being really well informed on this fascinating topic.
And maybe to kick us off, it's worth grounding ourselves in the practical side, how humans actually use randomness.
Good idea.
We've learned to harness it in some surprisingly clever ways, and it's truly everywhere once you start looking. That'll kind of springboard us into the deeper stuff later.
Okay, so when we talk about random generation in just like everyday conversation, what are we really getting at?
Well, at its simplest, it just means producing an outcome without any clear pattern you can spot.
Like rolling dice.
Yeah, exactly. Rolling dice, shuffling cards, or maybe your computer spitting out random loot in a video game.
Right.
And crucially, in those cases, random just means, well, unpredictable enough for what you need it for, practical purposes.
Okay.
This sort of pragmatic view, it highlights that for a lot of human history, our relationship with chance wasn't really about absolute truth. It was more about getting things done, which is kind of a subtle but important point.
That makes a lot of sense. It's that feeling of not knowing what's coming next. But how does that connect to something really precise, like mathematics?
Yeah, in math, randomness is deeply tied to probability. So you have a random variable, right? It's outcomes. You can't predict them individually.
Like the next dice roll.
Precisely. You can't say
Yeah.
what the next roll of a fair six-sided die will be. But, and this is the key bit, their distribution, the long-term pattern, that's well-defined.
Oh.
So across loads of rolls, each number on that die, it'll come up about 1/6 of the time.
So unpredictable event by event.
But statistically predictable overall.
Yeah.
A lack of determinism at the micro level,
Yeah.
but predictable in the aggregate.
It's fascinating how computers, these incredibly deterministic machines, have to fake something so fundamental. How does that mimicry actually work? And if it's not true randomness, where do they get it from?
You've really hit on a core challenge there.
Mm-hmm.
Computers are built to be totally predictable. Same input, same output every single time.
Right.
Which means they can't, by their nature, be truly random. So instead, they use these things called pseudorandom number generators, PRNGs.
Okay.
These are basically algorithms designed to mimic randomness, like the RAND function you see in a lot of programming languages.
But there's a catch.
There's a catch. If you know the starting point, the initial seed value,
Yeah.
the entire sequence of random numbers is completely predictable.
Ah, so not really random at all then.
Not in the truest sense, no. For true randomness, computers sometimes need to look outside themselves. They rely on external inputs that are, assumed to be physically unpredictable.
Like what?
Things like radioactive decay or atmospheric noise, even the tiny, jittery movements of your computer mouse.
Yeah.
Stuff from the physical world.
Which brings us nicely to physics. Does the universe itself have true randomness, or is it all just us not knowing enough?
And this is where it gets really philosophical, doesn't it? In classical physics,
Yeah.
the thinking was, the universe is deterministic.
Laplace's demon.
Exactly. Know the position and momentum of every particle, predict the future, in theory.
Right.
But then quantum mechanics comes along and just throws a massive wrench in the works.
Uh-huh.
Quantum events, like when a radioactive atom decays, or which slit a photon goes through in that double slit experiment, they are fundamentally unpredictable. Not just hard to predict, but unpredictable in principle.
Wow.
The laws of physics only give us probabilities for those outcomes. So this very strongly suggests that, yes, true randomness does seem to exist at the quantum level.
That's like kind of mind-bending. It challenges our whole idea of cause and effect.
It really does.
Yeah.
It suggests the universe might just be inherently more unpredictable than we can really wrap our heads around.
Okay, so if we pull all those threads together, the everyday unpredictability, the math distributions, the computer fakes, the quantum weirdness, how do we distill what randomness really means now?
It really boils down to producing outcomes that lack a predictable pattern.
Right.
We model it in math using probability. We fake it in computers with algorithms or maybe borrow it from physical processes. And it's possibly genuinely real in physics.
Fueling that big debate.
Exactly. The determinism versus indeterminism debate. Are things random just because we're ignorant?
Yeah.
Or is randomness baked into reality itself?
Like quantum mechanics and maybe chaos theory suggest.
Precisely. where tiny, unpredictable changes blow up into huge differences down the line. It's a fundamental question about the nature of reality.
Okay, so even with all these clever ways we use it, there's still this tension, isn't there, between randomness and our human desire for control.
Oh, absolutely. There's a core tension there. We crave control, predictability feels safe, but, like you said, if everything was perfectly predictable,
It'd be incredibly boring, mechanical.
yeah, completely deadening. Think about a game with no randomness.
Like high-level chess, right. It just collapses into solved strategies, often ending in draws.
That's a perfect example. But then flip it around. A game that's pure randomness, like just flipping a coin over and over.
Pointless. Removes all agency. Nothing you do matters.
Right, so the magic seems to be in the middle. That sweet spot, structured unpredictability.
Rules and systems, but guided by chance. Like D&D dice roll.
Exactly. It mirrors life, in a way.
Yeah.
We have laws of physics, social rules giving structure. But then chance encounters, accidents, luck.
Mm-hmm.
That's what gives it vitality.
And this brings us to a really interesting question you raised in your sources. If a creator uses randomness, can they still claim ownership? Does relying on chance somehow diminish authenticity?
That's a really rich one, and there are a few ways to look at it. One argument is, yes, the creator is still fully responsible.
Because they chose to use randomness.
They chose to invite randomness in. They curated the outcomes. Even if dice generated an NPC's name, the dungeon master decided to roll the dice and then decided if that name actually fit the character of the world. Or you could see randomness more like a collaborator, a neutral partner bringing surprises the creator might not have thought of alone. A bit like, ancient ideas of fate co-authoring our lives.
Okay, and what about the authenticity angle? Does using randomness make something feel less real? Less authentic?
I'd argue no, actually, because life itself is profoundly shaped by random variables, isn't it?
Like where you're born, your genetics.
Your genetic lottery, chance encounters that completely change your path,
Mm.
all these things frame who you are. So if randomness is baked into reality,
Then using it in art could make it more authentic by reflecting life.
potentially, yeah. And it's also liberating for the creator. It takes off the pressure of having to be omnipotent, Decide every tiny detail.
Let chance handle the small stuff.
Right. Let them focus on the bigger picture. And for the audience, it means genuine surprise. Things don't feel railroaded or predetermined.
That's a profound way to put it. It's not about making everything from scratch, maybe, but about engaging with what emerges, which leads us to that common feeling. Why does using randomness sometimes feel like cheating, especially in games?
Okay.
Why does a handcrafted world often feel more authentic than a procedurally generated one?
Ah, yes. This is a really rich tension, and it touches on a long-running debate. First off, there's something called effort bias.
Effort bias.
Yeah, we humans often equate effort with value. If someone painstakingly handcrafts every single tile on a map, we assume more care, more soul went into it.
Right.
Randomness or procedural generation feels like, like outsourcing the hard work to chance or an algorithm. It doesn't look like effort in the same way.
So it connects to that illusion of control, too. The creator seems less like a master artisan if they didn't explicitly place every rock and tree.
Precisely. When randomness is involved, it looks less like mastery and more like, rolling dice. We tend to undervalue the creative choice to embrace randomness itself.
And maybe a fear it bypasses skill, like anyone could just hit the random button.
Exactly that fear. But, in practice, not everyone knows how to curate those random results, how to refine them, how to weave meaning from them. So that feeling of cheating often comes from a bias towards visible labor and total control.
Okay, let's compare them directly then. Handcrafted worlds versus procedurally generated ones. What are the pros and cons?
Okay, handcrafted worlds. The big pro is intentionality. Every detail can reflect a purpose, embed narrative, feel personal, unique. It's an authored experience.
But the downsides?
They're inflexible. Once you've explored it, you've seen it all, and they're incredibly resource-intensive to build.
Yeah.
Time, money, and they can end up feeling static.
Right, and procedurally generated. I can just imagine the chaos sometimes, developers trying to wrangle pure randomness. It must be a constant dance, right? Between letting go and steering it.
Oh, it absolutely is. The pros are that potential for infinite variety, massive replayability, genuine surprise. They can simulate these huge living worlds that feel bigger than any single author could create by hand. And it scales up content creation massively.
But the cons?
The risk is they can feel shallow, repetitive, or just incoherent if the rules aren't designed really well. The meaning is emergent, maybe, but not tightly controlled. Players might sense a lack of soul if the randomness isn't filtered or curated effectively.
So neither is inherently better, just different strengths.
Exactly. Different approaches to authorship, really.
Which brings the authenticity question back to how we define authenticity itself.
Undoubtedly. Is authenticity purely about the tool used, or is it about the relationship between the creator and the result? A handcrafted map made reluctantly, just checking boxes, might feel less authentic than a procedurally generated world that the creator lovingly curated, pruned, and shaped into their vision.
So raw procedural generation might feel hollow.
But if the developer designs the rules, throws out the bad results, highlights the cool, surprising ones, the curation is authentic authorship. Think about jazz improvisation.
Ah, good analogy.
The randomness doesn't make it inauthentic. The authenticity is in the player's relationship to the moment, how they interpret and respond to the unexpected notes.
So it's not just what you make, but how you engage with it. Philosophically, that's quite a shift from just valuing pure effort.
It really is. A sort of a romantic view might equate authorship purely with labor and control, making handcrafted seem truer.
Right.
But a more modernist or postmodern view allows authorship to include chance, collaboration with systems, finding meaning and emergence. From that angle, randomness can be just as authentic. Maybe even more so sometimes because it reflects life's unpredictability.
So it only feels like cheating if authenticity is defined narrowly as just control and visible effort.
Pretty much. If you broaden authenticity to include curation, interpretation, engaging with surprise, then both methods are authentic, just in different styles. Handcrafting is authorship via precision. Procedural generation is authorship via possibility and curation.
That's a really powerful distinction. Now let's take your own example you mentioned earlier, world building with AI chatbots. You're using them to generate filler, like a tavern menu, and you've even programmed them with some personalities reflecting your own thought process. How does authorship even work there? It feels complex.
Yeah, your example is perfect because it shows these multiple layers. First, there's your overarching vision for the rules, the tone, the feel. You set that.
Okay.
Then the algorithm you build acts as a tool, kind of encoding your tastes into a system. For filler stuff like tavern names or menus, things needed for immersion but maybe not core plot points, you outsource the little details to chance, maybe using random generators.
Because doing it all by hand would be tedious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe not the best use of your creative energy, but then critically there's your curation. You get the final say. You keep, discard, or tweak what the system generates.
So even though the algorithm is doing the creating in a sense?
You authored the framework, the rules, the aesthetic direction. The randomness just fills in blanks you deliberately left open for it.
Okay, so this doesn't kill authenticity then, even with AI involved now.
I really don't think so.
Yeah.
It's extending your creativity, not replacing it. Think of an architect designing a building. They set the vision, the plans. They might let the builders choose the specific grain on a wood plank, but the building is still the architect's design.
Or like a jazz composer setting the structure but letting players solo.
Perfect analogy. In your tavern menu case, the authenticity isn't in you handpicking every single ale. It's in your decision that this world has taverns. The taverns have menus, and those menus should feel somewhat fleshed out to make the world believable. Your vision anchors the detail, even if randomness provides some of the filler.
That's interesting, the algorithm becoming almost like a proxy mind.
It kind of is, yeah.
Yeah.
When you build an algorithm to generate things according to your design, it carries forward your intent. If you wrote the rules, then in a way, every output is an echo of your authorship.
So the authenticity depends on how much you put into the system.
I think so. Building a bot reflecting your world's rules for your purposes is very different from just hitting a generic randomize button that has no connection to your vision.
And that random detail, like the full menu when the story just needs one drink order, that makes perfect sense as a use case.
It absolutely nails why random generation is so handy for those small immersive details. They add richness, but making every single one by hand is often impractical or even unnecessary.
It actually makes it feel more real in a way.
You could argue it's more authentic to life. When you walk into a real pub, the full menu exists even if you only order a pint. Randomness helps your fictional tavern mirror that lived reality full of detail, most of which goes unnoticed, but it makes the world feel solid alive.
So you, the meta creator, you're less a writer of every detail and more a world architect.
Exactly. You're setting up the conditions, the possibilities, deciding what matters, what rules to encode, when to let chance play, and when to step in yourself. You're defining the vision, the values.
So using randomness or algorithms isn't cheating.
It's collaborating with chance or with a system you designed as a co-creator, much like real life collaborates with randomness in shaping our own existence.
Hmm.
It just shifts what authenticity means in that context.
That frames it really well. Okay, let's shift slightly to a related point, again from your experience. You mentioned using AI on your YouTube channel for music and podcasts. You program the AI chatbots with your subpersonalities, you collaborate, research with them, decide what makes the cut.
Right.
Now, that process sounds very similar, in principle, to using a random table for ideas, which most creators think is fine, totally acceptable. But using AI like that, often not seen as socially acceptable. Why the double standard?
Yeah, that's an excellent framing of the issue. Random number generators, dice tables, name lists, they're generally accepted, right?
Hmm.
Because they have obvious limits. Their scope is narrow.
Nobody thinks the name generator wrote the story.
Exactly. Just spat out a prompt or a name. There's also transparency. People basically understand randomness. The process isn't mysterious. And there's tradition. Writers, game designers, they've used these simple tools for ages. Randomness feels like a small helper, not a threat.
But AI gets a totally different reaction. Why? Even if functionally, like you said, it's another generator.
It's a very different reaction.
Mm.
I think the key differences are scope and power. Unlike a simple loot table, AI can generate entire essays, songs, images. Its sheer capability makes people feel like it's replacing the artist, not just assisting.
And the opacity thing again.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Randomness is simple. Roll a die. AI is often a black box. It's trained on massive data sets we don't fully see or understand. People don't know how it thinks, and that feels uncanny, weird.
Which ties back to that ownership anxiety we talked about.
It really does.
Yeah.
With a random table, authorship feels clear. You rolled, you chose. With AI, there's this fear of blurred authorship. Is this really your work or just the machine's?
Mm.
Plus the cultural context. Randomness is old hat.
Yeah.
AI is new. It's disruptive. New tech always faces skepticism. Think about the printing press, photography, synthesizers.
Right. Always resistance.
AI hits raw nerves because it challenges traditional ideas about creativity and who gets to be called an artist.
Yeah.
So yeah, AI feels like a competitor, while randomness feels like a familiar tool.
You know, thinking about those reactions, there's often a sense that randomness is fair. Like everyone gets the same chance with a dice roll. But with AI, that perception of fairness seems to just evaporate. Why do you think that is?
That's a really insightful point. Random generation often does feel like it equalizes things. Everyone rolling dice accepts fate is impartial. It's fair chaos in a way.
Yeah.
AI, though, it can amplify power imbalances, can it? People with better prompts, access to better models, more compute power,
Mm.
they might get better outputs. That doesn't feel inherently fair in the same way. It makes randomness feel kind of cozy and playful, maybe, while AI can feel like this sharp competitive tool.
It really is a social double standard when you think about it. Creators use randomness, references, templates, collaboration all the time without anyone yelling cheat.
Precisely. Nobody says a novelist cheated by using a baby name book, or a composer cheated by riffing on a random chord progression they stumbled on.
Right.
AI feels different mainly because it's more capable and complex, so it blurs that line between inspiration and substitution more dramatically. People project their anxieties onto it, that it devalues human skill, homogenizes culture, undermines authenticity because a machine did it.
But fundamentally, it's still a tool.
It's still a tool like randomness. The difference is mostly scale and complexity, which triggers different cultural reactions.
So in your specific example with your AI reflecting your subpersonalities, that collaboration, it's actually very human-driven.
It is. You design the framework, you feed it rules and data, you research with it, you filter, you curate, you decide what fits your vision. That's not just outsourcing creativity. It's shifting creativity into authorship by orchestration, rather than handcrafting every single note or word yourself.
The AI extends you, doesn't replace you.
Exactly. Just like a random generator does, only it's more conversational, more dynamic, maybe more powerful.
This really forces us to ask, what is creativity then?
It absolutely does. With randomness, the human role feels clear. With AI, the human's role shifts more towards collaborator, director, curator. And that makes us question what creativity itself really means.
If it's making everything from scratch.
Then AI looks like cheating. But if creativity is about bringing forth new meanings, selecting, curating, orchestrating, then AI is just another potential partner in that process.
So the dislike comes from it feeling too powerful, too mysterious.
Too close to human turf. Yeah. Random generators are accepted because they're small, predictable, traditional assistants. AI gets pushback because it's big, complex, and challenges our assumptions. But the core distinction is arguably more cultural and emotional than purely logical. Both are ways to invite the unexpected into art. AI just makes that invitation bigger, broader, and for some people, scarier.
Okay, so we've got this fascinating mix of truth and fallacy swirling around AI, haven't we? What's the real kernel of truth about why AI is so powerful and disruptive? And where do the fears often slide into, well, fallacies?
There's definitely a kernel of truth, absolutely. AI is introducing real changes we can't just ignore. The
Yeah.
scale is unprecedented. Unlike a name generator, it can produce whole works, stories, songs, images in seconds. That is disruptive.
Right.
Its accessibility is huge, too. Tools that needed years of training are suddenly available to almost anyone. That democratizes things, but it also unsettles established hierarchies.
And the quality is getting scary good.
The quality creep, yeah. Outputs are getting harder to distinguish from human-only work, which understandably threatens jobs and challenges ideas about originality. And like we said, the opacity, it feels like a black box, which makes its power feel a bit eerie or uncontrollable.
Mm.
So yes, AI is qualitatively different from older tools.
But then the fears often leap way beyond that. Where does the slope get slippery?
Yeah, they often push into exaggerated territory. Like AI will replace all human creativity. That ignores everything humans add beyond raw output, meaning intent, context, curation, emotional depth.
Or AI work isn't authentic.
Right, which conveniently forgets that almost no art is purely from scratch.
Mhm.
Artists have always built on what came before, used tools, combined ideas.
And that inconsistent standard.
If you use AI, it's not your work. Apply that logic consistently,
Yeah.
and using a random generator, a Photoshop filter, even a thesaurus would disqualify authorship. It doesn't hold up.
And the doomsday scenario. AI will destroy art.
That frames technology as some unstoppable destiny. But history shows culture negotiates with new tools. Photography didn't kill painting. Synthesizers didn't kill acoustic music. They changed the fields, sure, but they didn't erase the human drive to create. Fear tends to collapse all that nuance into extremes.
And this explains why the discomfort with AI feels so much stronger than with simple randomness.
It really does. I think a big part is that AI outputs can look like finished products. Randomness usually gives you fragments, names, numbers, prompts, raw material.
Right.
Because AI can hand you something seemingly polished, people assume the creative struggle, the human effort, was bypassed entirely. But that overlooks all that crucial background work. Framing the intent, guiding the AI, sifting through outputs, curating, editing, integrating. That's still creativity, just meta-creativity.
Let's dig into some deeper nuances now, things maybe not always talked about. What's the fundamental difference in how random generation works versus how AI generates things?
Yeah, this is key and often missed. Random tables, dice rolls. They usually operate on pure chance. Each roll is independent, no memory,
Pure chaos.
pretty much. AI, though, it doesn't really do pure randomness. It works from patterns it learned from vast amounts of data. Its outputs look unpredictable, maybe, but they're guided by those learned structures and associations.
So it's not random, it's pattern.
It's more like deterministic unpredictability. It gives
Yeah.
an illusion of randomness, but it's really recombining prior information in complex ways. So using RNG is embracing chaos. Using AI is more like collaborating with a pattern distorted mirror of humanity's collective output.
And that invisible labor of curation we mentioned, people just don't see how much goes into making these tools useful.
Massively overlooked. When someone dismisses AI or RNG as cheating, they ignore the work of curation. You might throw away 9 out of 10 random results. With AI, you might iterate on prompts dozens of times, reject tons of outputs, then heavily edit the one you keep. That selection, interpretation, refinement that is creative labor. Creativity isn't just making stuff. It's selecting and shaping and meaning-making.
And the whole idea of creating from scratch, it's mostly a myth anyway, isn't it?
It really is. No human creates in a vacuum. Writers use tropes, myths, existing language. Musicians use scales, chord progressions, rhythms developed over centuries. Artists reference styles, techniques, cultural symbols.
We all build on what came before.
Exactly. AI and RNG just make that combinatorial nature visible. They embody the fact that art involves rearranging existing elements, and maybe that visibility threatens our romantic self-image of pure, unaided originality.
And finally, that meta-randomness of life itself, you touched on it earlier, chance being baked in.
Right. Chance shapes so much: where we're born, our genes, who we meet. But here's a subtle difference. RNG tools, like dice, remind us of chance in a kind of playful, limited way. It feels contained.
Oh, yeah.
AI, because it works by reflecting patterns in human data. It subtly reminds us of the deterministic side of life, too. The fact that we're also products of our inputs, our culture, history, experiences, the data we consume.
Uh,
AI kind of forces us to confront, are we fundamentally different from an algorithm trained on experience? That's a heavier, more existential question than just rolling dice for a game.
wow. Okay, so bringing it all together then. Randomness is maybe chaos distilled into fairness, and AI is pattern distilled into reflection.
That's a neat way to put it. And the tension isn't really about which one is more authentic, maybe. It's more about our own comfort level with tools that reveal how we ourselves create through this messy mix of randomness, learned patterns, and active curation.
So to recap the big ideas from today. Humans, we crave structure, sure, but total predictability is deadening. We need randomness, it prevents stagnation, it mirrors life's uncertainty.
And using randomness, or AI, doesn't automatically erase authorship. It shifts it. Authorship becomes about the framing, the rules, the curation, not just handcrafting every single element. Authenticity isn't just about from scratch. It's about engaging meaningfully with what emerges.
Right. And the reason random tables feel okay, but AI feels threatening, partly perception. Random tables are familiar, transparent, limited assistance. AI is new, opaque, powerful, feels like a competitor. It's more cultural reaction than pure logic.
And while they might look like shortcuts, there's often significant hidden creative labor in using both RNG and AI, effectively the choosing, rejecting, refining, weaving things into a meaningful whole.
Gotcha. They represent different kinds of unpredictability, too. RNG is closer to true chaos, impartial, fair. AI is patterned unpredictability, reflecting human culture back at us, warts and all.
Exactly. And both tools ultimately push us to question what creativity and authenticity really mean. They remind us that we humans also create through a blend of chance, memory, learned patterns, and deliberate recombination.
So in the end, random generation and AI, they're not cheats, maybe, but co-creators. Randomness supplies the raw chaos. AI supplies the patterned mirrors. The human role, the real source of authenticity is in how we frame, curate, and give meaning to whatever they generate.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. What does it mean for your own creativity, knowing that chance and pattern play such a fundamental role, not just in the art we make, but in the fabric of life itself?